Hi everyone, welcome. My name's Allie and I'm part of your learning team this semester. And I'm going to be talking to you guys about ABA because we're doing learning this week and because ABA is what I am studying and I think it's really cool. So hopefully you guys find this interesting. So ABA is the scientific principles of learning and motivation to teach effectively. The core concept is that consequences of what we do affect what we learn and what we will do in the future. In regards to learning, this is operant conditioning, which is a method of associative learning that focuses on the strength of behavior and how it's modified through reinforcement or punishment. And there's positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement being behaviors that produce a good outcome are more likely to occur in the future. So you're adding a positive thing in order to increase the likelihood of the behavior. Negative reinforcement is also used. Negative reinforcement involves removing an aversive stimuli in order to, again, increase the likelihood of a behavior happening. So this is like removing homework, like one of the days that the teacher takes away, you don't have to do homework today. That would be an example of negative reinforcement. Positive punishment is like spanking a kid if they're doing something bad, or and negative punishment would be like putting a kid in timeout because you're removing them from the situation of having fun. And people are very motivated by what they get out of what they do. Like, we go to work because we get a paycheck. We help people because it feels good to help people. For children with autism, usually these things have to be taught. We have to condition them to understand what money is, teach them that when you do your work and you accomplish things, like that's like a good feeling. So usually we start off with innate reinforcers such as like gummies, like food that they like, and then we work our way up and start fading those so that they do things in a more like natural, socially appropriate way. So positive reinforcement, that's very important in regards to positive reinforcement is that it must be specific to the child and they must be motivated by this thing. Usually in order to do this, we use something called a preference assessment, where we'll lay out 3 or 4 things that the child is interested in and see what they gravitate towards, and then we'll use that as their reinforcer for the activity. So one thing about ABA is that it assumes that it's not the child's fault. It's our fault if the child's not learning, and we must change the way that we are teaching. Often what happens is that the child isn't motivated by what we have to offer, which is why it's extremely important that we do the preference assessments. And another thing that happens is we're pushing the child too hard and we reach something called ratio strain. Essentially, the child is not receiving reinforcement at a rate that's comparable to the effort that they have to put in. So this is why the schedules of reinforcement are really popular or really important in ABA, which you guys should have talked about those in class, like variable ratio, interval ratio, etc. is what I'm talking about in this case. Some of the ABA programs are DTT, NET, verbal behavior. Here's the list. So DTT involves breaking a skill apart into smaller discrete trials, like washing your hand. You turn on the faucet, you put the soap on your hands, things like that. So we teach each skill specifically through in a very like systematic way. Natural environment teaching is usually done through play. If the child wants something like a ball, you can use that opportunity to have them like say it, have them touch the ball, have them pick between 2 colors, things like that. It's the most common, I think the most common way now that we use it, because we figured out that it is extremely effective because the child almost doesn't even realize that they're learning. Verbal behavior is breaking up like why kids are requesting things, or like why kids are saying things. So whether they want something, whether you're asking them to touch something, match something, those are all different areas of verbal behavior that we teach individually and then together. Challenging behavior refers to an undesired or a behavior that is hindering the child in some way from accessing like the world. So if they're hitting their head, it's like really dangerous for the child, or if they're blurting out in class, they're disrupting their learning as well as the learning of others. So those are the type of behaviors that we want to target to try and have them decrease. Data collection for every behavior that we're trying to change, whether increase the likelihood of it happening or decrease, we will have a chart, and we'll usually take the data with clickers or tallies or other ways. But for everything we do, we are taking data. And programming for generalization implies that we are going to make sure that the child is able to do the behavior in a variety of environments. Like if they're washing their hands in the school bathroom, can they wash them at home? Can they wash them at the public bathroom at McDonald's, etc. And as I talked about language earlier, like verbal behavior, so these are some of the different parts of it. So we might start with matching. We instruct them to put them with the same, and then we give them praise. So they're hearing the word apple and seeing an apple, and then we will move on to listening, touch the apple, and then imitating it, requesting an apple when they're hungry, labeling when the apple is present, etc. Some play curriculum. We have independent play, interactive, pretend, electronic, and constructive. So a lot of our kids have to be taught these types of play because for them, they prefer just repetitive actions, stacking the cars, like lining them up, and we might teach them how to play with the train in a different way, or play with the cars in a new way, match things on a book, things like that. And there's also social skills. With the younger kids, we usually teach them to sit and like look to you for instruction, so that when they get into kindergarten, they're able to access whatever the teacher's asking of them. But as they get older, we'll teach them different things from like social interaction or self-esteem. Winning and losing is usually something that's kind of hard for some of the kids that I've worked with, and dealing with conflict. And then these are also some other cognitive skills that we work on in our curriculum. So with younger kids, colors and shapes, and then with older kids, we can teach them how to use money, rhyming and poetry. Teaching them how to like read poems can sometimes be really hard because they're not literal. And lastly, these are the different levels of like credentialing for ABA. I currently hold my RBT, which involves a high school diploma and a 40-hour course, and I'm pursuing my BCABA, which is a bachelor's degree, about 5 college credits in ABA, and 1,300 fieldwork hours. And then your master's, same thing as your bachelor's, you just need 2,000 hours, your master's, and then your ABA coursework, and then doctoral goes on from there. So if you guys have any questions about anything I talked about, please feel free to reach out. I love talking about this stuff, and I think it's super interesting. Also, we are having a career fair this week, and one of the ABA companies in Hawaii is going to be talking if you guys are interested. It's a great part-time job too, and I hope you guys found this interesting.